Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us for today's workshop. My name is Rachel Fernandez, and I'm part of Bamboocorn, an exciting equity crowdfunding platform for tokenized securities. We have recently obtained the innovation testing license from the Dubai Financial Services Authority and are also a participant in Central Bank of Bahrain's regulatory sandbox. Today, we are hosting a workshop on technology in market research presented by Batukhan Taluy, a tech entrepreneur and the founder of Uservision that uses AI technology to connect with your customers. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them onto the private chat in your right. I'll bring them up at the end of your presentation for a quick Q&A. During the presentation, we would get a feel for the market research industry, qualitative research techniques, traditional market research versus modern methodologies, and more. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Batukhan. Batukhan is an insight professional, a strategist, and an entrepreneur. Through Uservision, he has consulted over 50 Fortune 500 brands to make them more user-centric and also leverage agile qualitative insights. He is also an avid technology, music, and film enthusiast and a lifelong learner. He began coding in elementary school and comes from a family of entrepreneurs. We came across Batukhan at an event in Istanbul and found his experience in market research technology quite unique. We are sure that the audience will benefit from Batukhan's experience. Over to you, Batukhan.
Thank you very much for the introduction. There's some echo. Could you just mute your microphone, Michelle? Yep, I think now it's better. So perfect. Thank you for the introduction again. This is Batukhan, the founder of Uservision, and I've been involved in market research for 6 years, and in a couple of months, it's actually going to be 7 years. And I have published methodologies over qualitative research domain and have been involved in creating new technologies for accelerating and bettering the industry. So today I will talk about the developments in the qualitative research industry and how the whole industry works and grows. So when we talk about big industries, of course, market research doesn't come up to our minds, but the total size of the insight industry is around $80 billion, which is even bigger than the whole coffee market. Hence today I will talk to you about what my expertise lies in the qualitative part of the market research, which is around 14% of this number. And although only 14% of this number of $80 billion is qualitative research, I will explain how it will grow more rapidly than ever before, because the UX research market, business intelligence market, and the underserved SMEs are not in this number. So even SMEs, so market research is considered to be something for the enterprise companies. Yet when you look at Africa, when you look at especially North Africa, most companies the country is developing very rapidly. And when the country is developing very rapidly, SMEs, of course, are the backbone of the of such developing countries, and market research is crucial in such markets. So when we look at the industry back at 1970s, we can see that it was all about products, right? Brands differentiate themselves with products, but when you fast forward to 1990s, then you realize that most companies could do better or worse, could provide similar products. So they started to compete on the service side of the brands. And when you come to the 2000s, as everyone actually provides a similar product and a service, now they compete on the customer centricity level. And when we look at today, it's not about seeing the customers as customers, but as humans, so that we can add value to their life by seeing them as a human and complement their lives instead of seeing them as a customer and providing a value. Hence, to see individuals as humans instead of customers we have to understand their life holistically, and this is where qualitative research plays a role in, and that's why it's going to increase more rapidly than ever before. So how market research actually benefits the companies is that most companies, of course, most work, anything else that you work on, you start at a certain point, right? You do a job, but you can always do better. You can always optimize what you do. So when you start a work, when you introduce a new product to the market, or when you have a good marketing idea in your hand, you're just here. And utilizing any sophisticated techniques such as analytics, big data, or quantitative surveys, you can understand what consumers do and optimize your process in a certain way so that you can benefit from that project as much as you can. But on the other hand, on the other side of the medallion, there is always a better way to do what you do. Instead of optimizing the process, maybe there is a better word that clicks your audience's minds a better. So you innovate a product. I mean, we all know the Henry Ford's famous quote, like, if I asked my clients, my customers, what they would wanted, they would say faster horses or more horses. But he basically invented Ford, and that made the whole difference. So there is also optimizing stuff like faster horses, but there is also creating new products, and that is only possible when you understand why consumers act in a certain way. And when you understand why consumers act in a certain way, then that is a totally different vertical. That's a totally different way which you can optimize your business. So one of our advisors, Don Peppers, who is the founder of Peppers and Rogers consultancy firm, and also who has been claimed as one of the most important business minds in the last century, has a perfect analogy for this phenomenon. So when you look at beehives in the nature, so bees, of course, exploit a certain area. So when they grow their beehives, they go to the nature and they exploit all the flowers. They took the nectar of their flowers and create their beehives. But after a while, there aren't much flowers left to get the nectar from. So what the bees have to do is, instead of exploiting the nature, they have to explore their surroundings and find another area to exploit, basically. And this is actually the difference between qualitative research and quantitative research, where the quantitative part helps you understand what you can do in a better way, and the qualitative part is basically understanding the why between these questions. And having a more rapid development in the industry and the perception of consumers, the why part is catching more and more emphasis in today's world. So Peter Drucker, the famous entrepreneur, also has a great quote for this. So efficiency is doing things right, and effectiveness is doing the right things. So we can just put so much effort, so much power to become the most efficient company, but that sometimes just doesn't cut out, because you have to also do the right thing. So you have to be effective instead of simply being efficient. So saying all that, I just want to indicate in a more clear picture when we should use qualitative research. So when we look the other part of the research world, the quantitative part, so if we want to understand what fraction of a current population acts in a certain way, if we want to do a decision through a decision-making process, if you want to fine-tune a pricing strategy or any other KPI which is similar to the pricing strategy, if you want to prioritize a certain action, if you want to reveal some ratios, and basically for any challenge with auditing and measuring the current state, then we should happily use any quantitative measures to optimize our business. But if we want to differentiate ourselves, have a core understanding of what consumers want, if we want to understand the usability and the customer experience of a domain, if we want to validate some hypothesis even before introducing that certain product in the market, if you want to co-create with our customers, and if you want to onboard them as stakeholders in our business, if you want to reveal opportunities for marketing, advertising, and innovation, and basically for any future-related challenge, finding new opportunities, and also optimizing our business in a more qualitative way, such as user experience and customer experience, then we have to use more qualitative techniques. So a very frequently asked question is, in qualitative research, of course, we use way smaller samples. So typical quantitative research will take a minimum of 300 individuals answering a question to a regular 600 and 1,000 individual interviews. Surveys and feedback that you can capture. But at a qualitative study, you can start with a number of 5, and a 30 is a very adequate number to finalize a qualitative research. So it has been frequently asked to me, how is it possible to capture meaningful insights through such small numbers? So I have added some links here you will see in a bit to explain this phenomena in a more in-depth way. But basically, when we capture insights from consumers, you won't believe how quickly consumers tell the similar things or similar problems. So what qualitative research does is basically understanding patterns. It's a methodology for pattern recognition and capturing data for this pattern recognition. And if we want, for example, if we're tackling a very new problem like an innovation or something, you can understand the math between underlying that problem very quickly. So even if broader insights are adequate, then, for example, if you want to understand different consumer segments for media planning or increasing conversion on a landing page, then even 5 individuals, 10 individuals will be enough to show you those patterns, and you will be very efficient on quickly solving these problems. But of course, if you're an FMCG company that has a very broad consumer base, then you have to conduct research in a more intensive way. So you need more consumers to actually find those little nuances, to find those little competitive edges. So basically, where you have to stop until a research is when you don't learn anything new. So ideally, you have to continue research until it's been saturated, so until you don't learn anything new. But this learning nothing new process comes very much faster than you think. Even 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, after 8 or 10, you realize that people are talking over same thing over and over again, and you can immediately realize, that's the problem point. And there's also a statistical explanation of this phenomena. So here we have a formula where I is the ratio of how often the problem has been mentioned. So let's say we have a problem. We think that women who works out, we want to market a product to women who works out, and 25% of these women experience a certain problem. So if we subtract 25% from 1, 0.20% from 1, what we are left with is 0.75%. So that is the number. So this is the number, 1 minus 0.25. So basically 75% is the number of consumers that don't face the problem. So if 25% of them faces the problem, 75% won't face the problem. And if we just find 10 people in our research, the probability of ourselves not capturing insights from 10 people who doesn't face 75 of them doesn't face the problem is 94%. So where I'm coming is there is a very, very low possibility when we conduct research. And if 25% of the individuals face a certain problem, there is a very huge chance for us to capture that problem, deep dive into that problem, and report it to our clients. So even when you do some statistical calculation, and even with 10 people, you have a very high chance to dive deep into these problems. And of course, in real world, these ratios are way higher. So if a target group, let's say individuals, housewives, for example, who face a certain problem in a website, not 25%, but maybe 50%, 70% actually face that problem. So even 5 of them, 10 of them are very much adequate to solve that certain bottleneck on the web page and increase the conversion rates drastically. So how does the current market research process work? So first, a client, of course, briefs an agency, and the agency should understand the strategic goals of the brands and convey these goals to the internal team so that it can be processed as a market research problem. So market research is actually inherently a process of exploration. So while you're trying to explore a world, and bear in mind that if we ask the questions that everybody asks, so when a brand comes to an agency with problems that they actually have, so they know what they know, and they don't know they know what they don't know, so they ask you those questions. But the gold mine is where interesting stuff comes from is the area where they even don't know what they don't know. So as researchers, we have to understand what this brand is heading to, and where the conversation is heading, so that we would understand while we're exploring, while during this exploration phase, we understand the strategic points the brand didn't have asked us, but which are important and could bring a competitive edge to the brand. So a briefing part and having a strategic way of thinking of this briefing process is very, very important. Understanding strategic goals, because during the exploration phase, this is where you understand if an information and insight is relevant for the brand or not. So after briefing, after understanding the problem, the research agency should use several different sources to find the right audience for research purposes. And of course, you, as an agency, schedule these participants. And of course, after they finish the interview or whatever research technique that you use, you have to compensate the participant for their time, because of course they spend a certain amount of time for the research. So to incentivize these consumers to provide their time, you have to compensate their time according to their consumer segment. So if we're doing research with a student, for example, they have more free time. But if we're working with young professionals, then we have to increase the incentive so that they will be more prone to join to our interview. And of course, after we find the research participants and we know what to research, the part comes in where you actually capture the qualitative intelligence by mixing and matching several different techniques and gathering the data in an unstructured way. And ultimately, you the research agencies transform this unstructured text to a more structured structure so that it could be analyzed and clustered in a way. So this process has been called coding. So you have a bunch of sentences and you code these sentences with certain keywords, with a systematic way where you can analyze this data in a more basically systematic and scientific way. And what we use as a company is called grounded theory, but there are many other scientific ways to analyze quantitative data. So when I come back a slide, I mentioned that we capture qualitative insights with several different techniques. So the most popular of these techniques are, one of them is focus groups. We know this from movies, we mostly heard of focus groups has been conducted in many different industries. And another one of them is in-depth interviews. So when you look at focus groups, it's mostly about understanding groupthink. So how a group thinks in a certain way, and how group bias and culture acts in a certain topic. And when we look at in-depth interviews, basically we can use in-depth interviews in every kind of setting to deep dive into the consumer's minds and understand their perception over a certain topic. During these processes like focus groups and in-depth interviews, we can use projective techniques, storytelling, or role-playing to get a better understanding of the qualitative domain and stimulate the consumer's mind. So by projective techniques, I mean most of us, I'm sure, have heard of Rorschach tests. I mean, in movies, for example, they show you a blob of ink on a paper and ask you what you're thinking about. Projective techniques are very similar. So they may show you a picture like this, like a guy with a smiling face, have a speech bubble here, and just ask the participant, what does this guy say? So according to the consumer segment, we can create these speech bubbles. We can create different settings to the speech bubble so that instead of the participant telling an experience about themselves, they can project their image of the right to the image in the web screen, so it will help them to provide more honest answers. So another aspect of qualitative research is basically UX research for mobile applications and websites. So this is also a qualitative way of understanding how consumers use a certain mobile application or a website. And when you understand how they use the website and understand the bottlenecks of a website, the conversion rate increases drastically. So there is a very interesting article which is named $100 million button, where a company, I think it was Best Buy, if I'm not recalling wrong, but changed a single button on their webpage, which is the checkout button. And that has an effect of $100 million of increase in revenue. And what they did was, and many e-commerce sites after Best Buy added a similar button. So people were very hesitant to sign up to a web page when they buy a product. So what Best Buy did was, instead of sign up, they allowed them to do one-shot shopping instead of signing up. So that psychological trick actually increased the conversion rates more drastically than any other experience that I've ever heard. So there are two other methodologies, actually many different methodologies, but one major methodology is ethnography. So you go to a certain culture as a researcher and you explore and systematically take notes. So this picture is from a great movie which is called Embrace of the Serpent. I really recommend anyone to watch the movie. It's Embrace of the Serpent. And of course, ethnography is not just about going to an African tribe and watching them for a month, but you can do ethnography in banks, in FMCGs, in supermarkets, in retail stores, to understand the context, to understand what kind of people engages with your product and how and what is their perception. We have helped a bank over this process. So one of our employees realized that a bank, young people are not using ATMs. Instead, they were using the cash register to withdraw their money. And we realized that the problem isn't because of young people are not educated, but middle-aged women were hurdling these machines so that they don't have access to ATMs. And the middle-aged women were hurdling these machines because the software was not working very efficiently. So we advised the bank to change the software, and we decreased the time these middle-aged women using the product by 50%. And when that has been decreased by 50%, young people started to use ATMs. So every single party is happy. So even a simple observation, going to a bank or going to a certain area and just observing the surroundings, could be very, very insightful. And another aspect is called ethnography. So this is ethnography that has been done in the web space, in the internet space, where you systematically analyze the cultural codes of a certain group and do the same thing in ethnography, but through textual data. So there are more, let's say, cutting edge technologies right now. One of them is eye tracking, so you can track where consumers are looking on a certain ad or on a certain visual. There is GCR, where you can track the heartbeats of consumers, and also facial coding, where the computers with artificial intelligence could analyze if you're smiling, if you're happy, if you're frustrated, etc. As mentioned, analyzing the heart rates, analyzing the brain waves of consumers to understand if they're excited or not, are all methodologies that has been used in market research right now. And another very interesting technique, which is utilized by social psychiatrists, is implicit association test, a methodology stemmed from Harvard University, where we, as Uservision, also used to understand the implicit tendencies of consumers towards certain sensitive topics, leveraging a psychological trick. And also, when we look at today's world, there is an abundant source of data. And the data that you capture from Google Trends, Facebook audiences, and any other data sources is also very relevant to your research right now. And when you enrich your research with such data, it's easier to find more relevant solutions. Of course, big data, social media data is all relevant. So when you start to do the analysis, photos, videos, textual information, context, your comments and observations as a researcher, personal information, and any other like big data, social media, Google Trends, Facebook audiences, all of these could be used for creating an insight, for creating the math behind a certain habit, a certain action. So I've also appended a link here which explains grounded theory. But what you do during the research is, so you click on a certain sentence, and you create codes, let's say interviews, focus groups, which are nested in and out, in and out, in and out, in a way. And when you code the whole textual data that you capture from the interview, then you compare these codes and cluster them to find patterns, so that the data is scientific, so that what the process is scientific. And of course, many people in your focus groups or in-depth, when you do in-depth interviews, they provide similar answers. So when you compare these similar answers, you can understand that there is something going on here over these insights, over these patterns, and you can confidently report to your customer that, okay, we talked about this certain topic, and this topic emerge very frequently, and there is something important over this topic, and this is what is important over this topic. And utilizing this data, you can go a bit forward, one step backwards, and try to understand the math between why consumers act in a certain way. So you understood, utilizing this coding scheme, you understood why consumers act in a certain way, and you can ask further questions to understand what is the motivation, what is the math behind that. And that's how you do a good research, because when you understand not just the answer but the motivation, then you have the core insight, you have the core of the user's needs, and you can change, you can build, you can innovate over those core needs, and that will make the whole difference, the competitive edge to big brands. So this is actually one of the most important slides in my deck, where this is what the research is all about. So on a certain crust, like the shell of a snail, you have to go inside. So you have to understand the context, the life of a consumer in a holistic way. And only after that, you can go deep dive in and try to understand why consumers act in a certain way. Because if you don't understand their lives, then you will just get survey answers, and survey answers never provide you with the depth of the interview and the math behind their actions. So this is where the exact value is in the qualitative research, understanding their life and going further and further and further to understand what lies deep inside over the consumer's motivations. So to do the analysis, you can either use Excel, Google Sheets, Google Docs, and similar software, but there are also calculus software which are specifically curated to conduct qualitative research, basically. So I told you about market research, and I just want to tell you more about why market research is very important. So when we look at the industry, maybe you have heard this failure of Pepsi, where they spent more than $100 million for a campaign in US, and Kendall Jenner was one of the actors who heroically drank Pepsi during the Black Lives Matter events. And they wanted to run such an ad in the US during the Black Lives Matter events. However, it was a very sensitive topic, and without doing any market research, they run the ad and it just backslashed. People were furious about how Pepsi saw Black Lives Matter event as such a superficial event when people drink Pepsi and it's just all gone. So so if you fail to do market research like Pepsi do, they just spent $100 million and the money is all gone. And when you look at in a more user experience side, so it has been indicated that for every dollar that has been invested in user experience, you get 2 times to 100 times more revenue. So every dollar invested, it brings between $2 and $100 more revenue, according to the stock market. And according to Clayton Christensen, who is a innovation professor in Harvard, there are over 30,000 new products introduced every year, and 95% of them fail. So let's say 70 to 95% of them fail. And according to a professor in Toronto University, Professor Inez, as mentioned, 70 to 80% of new grocery store products fail. So you have to do drastic market research and understand the math lying behind these new products and the and services if you want to be successful in the industry. So without understanding your consumers, you're just trying your luck and trying to be the 5% among the 95% that failed. So we as Uservision realized there are certain inefficiencies in the market. So one of them is when you do qualitative research, of course, the data cannot be stored meaningfully, and you cannot reuse the data like you do it in analytics data or quantitative data. So it's not digitized. And humans have to do all the coding by inch, so it's very slow and very expensive. And when you do the whole market research, like the whole coding, the everything, like in a textbook, in a scientific way, it just costs too much money to do it very frequently every year. And of course, there aren't any technologies or methodologies that you can use. Maybe several competitors who would aid in doing DIY research. So as an enterprise firm, you cannot click a button, reach out to highly targeted audiences and ask them, hey, I'm in Turkey right now, and I want to understand why people consume iced tea in a certain market in Istanbul, in Dubai, or in London. So there is no company that allows you to click a button, reach out to these audiences in different markets all around the world and ask your question. So that's what we try to change with Uservision. We try to help brands to get implicit, explicit, and subconscious insights from highly targeted audiences in a very swift way. So how we as Uservision work is we have created a sophisticated targeting methodology for users where we also have panel partners. By panel partners, I mean we are partners with many different smaller and bigger companies to so that they already have a database of consumers, and we can use their database, which are specifically curated for market research, to find research participants. But what we also do is we do data partnerships with local and global brands that have nothing to do with market research. So let's say there is a web page, a brand in Turkey where students sign up to the platform for secondhand shopping. So if I want to find students, I know that there are only students here, so I can reach students through that platform, which has nothing to do with market research and allows me to source fresh, very targeted, very to the point consumers. And lastly, what we do is we use behavioral sourcing. So we use the infrastructure of Facebook, Instagram, and social media to find highly targeted audiences where we use, at least Facebook uses, Instagram uses, Google uses cookies, and several other tracking algorithms to show the right ads to the right people. And when we plug in the right the right properties for a consumer, we can show the right ads to the right people, onboard them to our platform, leveraging those ads, and find very fresh participants all around the world. And when we find the participants, of course, we use our own technology which allows us to remotely capture qualitative data, whether it's in neural research techniques, usability tests, in-depth interviews, or surveys. And as mentioned, we use speech-to-text algorithms to convert the textual data to, convert speech data to textual data so that it could be analyzed. So that's an optimization we do there. And we are building NLP algorithms, natural language processing algorithms, which create all of these codes automatically, at least semi-automatically, with the help of a researcher. So when they code one interview, or when they have already coded several interviews, it will just scale. The algorithm will learn and scale their learnings to other interviews so that this process could be accelerated by 60% to 80%. And that's a huge difference in the industry. And lastly, as we do all of this process digitally and we have these codes, we can attach these codes to the videos that we capture from our market research sessions, and we can make it searchable so that if you want to, let's say if you're a bank and you did some research on cryptocurrency, and actually another division did the research, so you just have heard that there has been a research done, but you haven't seen the report, you haven't seen the videos, but you just have a sense that there is a research somewhere there, and it's impossible for you to find the report. So now you can use the Uservision platform, and you can just enter the keyword cryptocurrency, and of course cryptocurrency will be coded in our video. And when you just click cryptocurrency, you will see all the videos, all the data that have been captured over cryptocurrency, and this will create an insight library, an insight hub for enterprise brands, so that they don't have to conduct the research that they have already done over and over and over again, and immediately reach to the insight they are looking through a central insight hub. So our solution is for marketing and media teams, product and service designer, UX people, CX people, strategy and insight teams, and we help them with differentiating their services, finding novel innovation opportunities, increasing efficiency, and of course, increase their sales and KPI. So to wrap up, how our ecosystem works is there are researchers, there are research participants who participate in our research. There are, of course, clients who there are also clients who pay for these researchers. There are technology providers like Uservision who would accelerate the process of research. There are local research agencies who acts in a local way to solve the research problems of these brands. There are, of course, bigger research agencies like Nielsen, Ipsos, and Kantar. And of course, there are field agencies which provide research participants to all of these stakeholders and aid them with the participant sourcing process. So when we want to talk about what we have done during the market research process, so we have worked with a French insurance company, and the global innovation lead. We worked very closely with him to understand a certain aspect, how a certain aspect would click with their consumer segment, and their competitors already had a similar product. And when we captured insights through the Uservision platform, just in a week, we told them that that is not the right way to go. Like, their competitors were doing it all wrong, and we gave them a different strategy. And the funny thing is, the competitors is although they are a year before in the market, they launched a year before in the market, they are now following the insurance company that we work with, because they also realized that our solution was way more effective than what they were doing right now. And with another Turkish bank, we work with their C-level to optimize their credit card process. So we did the customer journey map for their credit card user journey, from acquiring the credit card to using the credit card, and of course closing the card. And we optimized everything from notifications to how the card is being obtained to how are the promotions have been curated during the process. And with our efforts, they saved around 1 million Turkish lira every year, because we just cut 20% of bad feedback with smart notification systems, establishing a feedback loop, and some of the other areas which we help them to optimize. So what I've told you is are being done right now in the market. We're also doing there. We're also getting there. But where we want to head to is, as I mentioned, we can capture heartbeat with using many different devices. And I was in US a couple of months ago talking with the insight manager of Walt Disney Company. And they recently invested thousands of dollars into devices which you put into your hand and it captures your heartbeat. But the funny thing is, in the COVID era, you cannot put all these devices to a certain individual and plug them in a certain physical space and ask them for feedback. That's not feasible right now, and it wasn't actually feasible before COVID. So it's stupid to invite these people and get them out of their natural zone, comfort zone, and ask questions to them. It's just wrong. You don't get the right answer. So what we can do is we can use technology. So this is a video, this is a regular video, and this is a video that has been amplified with a certain technology. So we can use technology to actually capture heartbeat of consumers. We can currently use technology to analyze the tone of voice and facial gestures of consumers. And ultimately, what we can do is, and what we want to do is, we want to use all these modalities, all this data, to automate the process of understanding consumers and mitigate the need of researchers, so that we will get more in-depth insights, more nuanced insights in a more faster, in a more automated way. And we want to combine this biometric data with the textual data that we capture from the speech-to-text algorithms, and create the ultimate 100% automated market research software. So that's what we do in a nutshell, and that's how the market research process works in a nutshell. So if you have any further questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you very much for listening.
So we'd like to address any questions from our audience. If you have any, please type them in the private chat box that you can see on your right. So I'll take that as a no. I'm guessing there aren't any questions from the audience yet. But you could also see that I have mentioned the email address of Batukhan, and you can connect with him just to get to know more about what Uservision does. So thank you, Batukhan, for a really insightful and informative session. And is there anything else that you wanted to cover up before we wrap up?
No, thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
So very soon, Batukhan would be launching a fundraising round. So feel free to get in touch with him should you wish to know more about the round. And we will be happy to facilitate your interaction with Batukhan as Bambukon. So please find our contact details in the private chat as well. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.